In the 20-year history of Naver Webtoon, one particular trend in storytelling has been gaining popularity in recent years. That is, a protagonist being socially outcasted due to their under-the-par looks and realizing that their whole life turns around just by obtaining an above-average appearance. And believe me, in South Korea, despite how that sounds, this whole trope has been hitting the charts. True Beauty, a 2018 webtoon that follows one girl's rise up the social hierarchy through the use of makeup, finished in 2023 with nearly 1 billion views and a K-drama adaptation. Before, in 2014, a webtoon called Lookism was launched, which is about an unattractive boy who suddenly wakes up in a handsome body. Still a popular series in the platform, it's currently ongoing with 577 episodes, along with a Netflix TV adaptation. But between the release of the two, the 2016 drama webtoon My ID is Gangnam Beauty was released by creator Kim In-gi. While it is not as popular as the two, having only 15 million views on the English platform, it was still well known and also had a K-drama adaptation starring Chanwoo as one of the protagonists. It carries on the similar theme of social outcasts finding change by transforming their appearances. The main character, Mire Kang, is the Gangnam Beauty of the title because she underwent extensive plastic surgery in an attempt to find happiness in her life. But even as she enters university for the first time, and meets students in situations similar to hers, she learns that external beauty does not solve all her problems. Through gradual efforts to embrace satisfaction for appearance and free herself from internalized lookism, she comes to terms with her plastic face. Admittedly, that does sound pretty cliché at first, except for the fact that this webtoon does the trope a bit differently. It focuses on how women perceive beauty and how it dictates their role within society. It puts readers through the lens of female characters who feel stuck in place due to sexism and a cycle of comparison. In this episode, we'll be focusing on how Gangnam Beauty brings up the topic of women's beauty as a social construct that continually forces women to transform to please others, which then leads to loss of their individuality. Hi, I'm Sua, and welcome to Feels Like Literature, a podcast where we review and analyze stories across media to find what makes a classic. The story makes it very clear early on that it is not going to focus on how people are treated based on how they look. It dives in further to expose a hypocritical system where women's beauty is used as a means of control. And the first instance of this actively taking place in the story can be found in the festival arc around episode 25, where the female characters in Mira's department student council face consistent pressure from their male counterparts to fulfill common beauty standards. This treatment is definitely not normal, given that this goes on for nearly the entire episode and even up to the festival that they are planning for. Also, there's the fact that their main plan, obviously made by the boys, is to set up a pub and show off the attractive girls in their department who would be the servers. And as you may guess, there are not that many to fill in the role for their plan. Though one girl suggests that others are given a chance, she instead becomes berated by the council president. No, this is the dignity of our department. If you really want to participate then, Eunyu, you go get a double eyelid surgery. Tae Kim, you need to lose weight. Eunbyul Kwon, go get yourself a makeover to look like a girl. Even though the president himself doesn't have double eyelids, he claims that guys can look handsome without them. But apparently girls cannot. The fact that only a slight change in their eyes or body affects their value makes it clear that this is not just about how they look. It's all about power. Perhaps the reason why treating someone based on physical features is the most effective way to cripple one's self-esteem and satisfaction is because they represent a crucial part of one's identity. How you look is not something that can be easily changed, at least without extensive investment and effort. That's why above ability, economic standing, or age, the guys in the council target the girls' appearances, force them to alter what nearly cannot be altered to keep them in a loop of helplessness against their situation. At the same time, their treatment is not sexism because Mire and Soo-hyun, another character, are exempt for being the prettiest girls in their year. It appears like lookism, yet not one criticism relating to looks is directed towards a boy. In fact, the same suggestions, repeating to the girls, are made by the same guys over and over. To summarize, they use lookism to fuel sexism which advances their patriarchal power. This consistently points towards women being judged in such a hypocritical manner, and men being exempt as they are the ones dictating disorder. In addition, the webtoon creates an interesting motif of women being flowers. While in our world it's a phrase that's sometimes thrown around, Gangnam Beauty makes a statement of how language is used to violently subdue women and ground them in their place. This is done through the character of Miss Na, the beautiful CEO of a perfume magazine and a person Mita highly admires. In the stories, we get a series of flashbacks that tell us more about her past, but mostly about her turbulent marriage life. To summarize, Hae Sung-na had married young to a wealthy older man who chose her solely for her appearance. However, she later learned how little he cared for his duty as a father and a husband, rather expecting her to give up her job and dreams of becoming a perfumer to fill in the role. Their relationship worsens when a fight erupts and he physically injures her, making her lose her sense of smell and permanently ending her future prospects. Soon after the incident, she overhears her husband say, "Maybe she really is a flower now, beautiful and still." The kind of beauty that flowers symbolize here is not the kind you'd expect. It's one that lines with containment and submission rather than expression and movement. A flower trapped and withering in a vase rather than a wildflower swaying freely in the wind. For Miss Na, without the faculty to turn her dream to reality, that was her new fate. A housewife and human trophy with no other task than to look pretty in front of her husband, now with the time to fully commit to being the woman that she is often called out to become. While others would see in her the life of success, having a husband of high status, 2 children, and financial security, she understands that this would all be lost as soon as her usefulness and power fades with her beauty. What am I? Just a beautiful woman? Then, if I lost my beauty as well, then... Though Miss Na escapes her situation through divorce, you may wonder how could women in general escape from the image of flowers. Well, the webtoon tells us of 2 ways. The first is to recognize that men too are trapped in the same system. Miss Na's son, who is also Mita's love interest, was told as a child that real men don't cry. Patriarchal values not only harm women, but also the boys never allowed to show their true feelings growing up. The second is to keep in mind that most men cannot empathize because they are not in the place of women. And the webtoon addresses this in a pretty hilarious way. It does a form of role reversal when the 3 girls at the festival, fed up with their criticism, storm out and leave the guys to their own devices. It is only when the girls demand to have their own way that they come back. With their new power, the girls treat the guys exactly as they were treated. They dress all of them in their previous uniforms, long black dresses, and deny them soda with claims that their life would change if they lost some weight, and refusing them a coat because people don't like that kind of fashion. Throughout this whole sequence, it is clear that it is not being done to show the guys who's boss or prove that they're better, but to put them in their shoes, their heels, and make them understand how hurtful and frustrating it was to receive such criticisms over and over again. Not very surprisingly, the boys don't last long. Although put in a very comedic manner, the author acknowledges how the system would never end until one fully experiences or understands for themselves what it is like to be in such a position. As long as men continue to remain indifferent and refuse to empathize with women, the fact will remain that society enforces a framework that keeps women as flowers. Though Miss Na is the only one directly referred to as a flower in the story, we can see someone else in Mita's school willingly become one. Sua Hyun, an immensely popular girl shown to easily win boys to her side. The name is totally coincidence, by the way. Despite her harmless-looking natural beauty and innocent childlike disposition, Mita later learns that her entire personality is a facade. Much like Mita, Sua too had experienced traumatic circumstances based on her appearance. Though she had some degree of attractiveness, it was obscured by neglect and abuse. With one last meeting with her strange mother, she learned how to wash up and got her hair cut, which may not sound like much, but was enough to reveal her hidden beauty, and later to be recognized as the prettiest girl in her class. Her whole world was now turned on its head, making her realize how she could use her beauty and social appeal to never return to her previous life. She says, "For people to love me, first I need to be beautiful. And I have to act cute, but I shouldn't be conscious of my own beauty. I have to be obedient. I shouldn't be firm when expressing my own opinions. I shouldn't be too smart either. Always smiling, agreeing with others, acting kind and gentle." The fact that only now we get to see from her first-person perspective proves how important this arc is, since we are no longer seeing her from an outsider's point of view. Sua's act was created solely to enhance and take advantage of her natural beauty by forming an agreeable persona, which would make her instantly liked, yet cost her own identity and beliefs. After one incident, she realizes that she never, in fact, had genuine relationships and interactions with others at school. And always being agreeable, she learns how little she knew her own preferences, and by spending most of her time socializing with boys, pandering to win her affections, she finds genuine interactions new to her. Her personality, crafted from patriarchal norms, had limited her ability to express her desires, ultimately leading her to perpetuate a cycle of abandonment that she desperately wanted to leave in the first place. Her act indeed guaranteed that she would have people around her, yet her desire to please everyone led her to gain superficial relationships and a lonely life despite being in a crowd. Sua's arc, in the end, proves how enhancing one's beauty by externalizing patriarchal values leaves behind but a shell of a human being. My idea is Gangnam beauty brings the uncomfortable truth that our world is ruled by social constructs and individuals determined to force women to become flowers, perpetually pleasing and unmoving, but most of all, unhappy. Through character motifs, the creator of this webtoon proves how beauty is rather found in acting out gender expectations enforced by men's attitudes, and a society that dictates a woman's beauty. But with the progression of each character and their arc, the story tells us that beauty, especially a woman's beauty, is performative, existing through actions and behaviors and is separate from one's identity. This means that through continual effort to stand up to these constructs, meaningful change can be made to make a person's ID more than their beauty. Thanks for listening. Subscribe and like this episode if you liked it. It would help a lot. And leave a comment down below or contact me through feelslikeliterature@gmail.com. Next up, we will be looking at a slice of life webtoon that some of you may find yourself relating to. It freshly brings to the screen an immigrant narrative in the early 2000s, focusing on a pair of siblings ready to take on an uncertain future. I hope you look forward to the next episode, and I'll see you next time.